thought. So thank you. Thank you for coming. I do have I'm gonna take I've got 15 minutes allotted. I think I can keep it to under 15 minutes. I normally just say, hey, thanks for coming and
Mm.
move on. But I have a few things that I want to say. Because of our election. We just had an historic election, and so I want to talk about that just for a little bit. So the first thing I want to say is that I know, let me get my notes up here because I wrote some stuff down. I know that there are people who are super sad about what happened at the election on Tuesday. I know that there are people who are super happy. Um, and we may have both sides represented here. I don't know. We don't ask when people join the league. But what I do know is that we are more divided now than we have ever been, and I think that was probably going to be the case no matter who won. I think that democracy as we know it now is forever changed, and that may be for the better in the long run, or it may be for the worse. We don't know, and we get to weigh in on that. Um, I want to talk for a minute about statistics for legislative action because one of the things that we can do right now is that we can turn around and we can get involved with legislative action. And so I want to talk a little bit. Uh-oh, I left those notes on the table over here. I did a little bit of a dive last night um, in the archives of the Missouri House of Representatives website. We ask our members to weigh in with testimony, to submit written testimony often during the year, and tell our legislators what we think, what we want them to vote yes on or support or oppose. We do that from January to May. And we've been doing that since 2022. We started in about April of 2022 with a legislative update. And we send out an email and we say, click here to submit testimony, click here to call, find out who your representative is and give them a call. And we built that list to 1,000 people. So we have 1,000 people that we send that email to. So I wondered, is that effective? Are people actually doing that? And of course, it's not just us getting organized. There are other groups who are getting organized too. But I thought, well, I love numbers, I love proof. So I looked back and I looked at the bills that that had to do with the restricting the citizen initiative petition process. So that I only looked at those bills. And I only looked at the bills that made it to the point of getting public comment, that had testimony, and that testimony stays there forever. So in 2021, there were four bills that made it that had to do with citizen initiative petitions. And the pages of testimony for those four bills were 34 pages, 38 pages, 37, and 37. And I'm going to tell you, I think 34 were exactly the same people on each of those. And five of those pages of testimony for I didn't actually look at all of them, but for a couple of them, five of those were in support of the bill, and the rest were in opposition to those bills. And I'm gonna a negative shout out to that BJ guy who said no in every single one of these, by the way, for all the years. Um, so 34 to 38. In 2022, there were five bills that I looked at, and they ranged from 63 pages of testimony to 111 pages of testimony. Now, remember, we had just started to to organize you guys. Um, and that was 2022. In 2023, I only pulled one because by the time I figured out how easy it was to look at everything, I was kind of in the middle, and then I went back to the beginning and then went back to the end. So, but that one that I looked at, HJR 43, got 336 pages of testimony. Last year, 2024, I looked at 6 bills and they ranged from 76, which isn't that many, but that was a bill I don't think that made it very far, to 468 pages of testimony. And that one with 468 pages of testimony, guess how many pages of testimony were in support of that bill? It's a trick question. 5. I bet it was that same 5. So passage of that bill would have meant that we didn't pass the abortion. We wouldn't have passed the abortion amendment
Right.
here. If that bill, if any of those bills had passed, we would not have passed the abortion bill. It really matters. I am absolutely convinced, I believe 100% that they didn't pass that bill because they knew what a big fight it would be, because we made it clear to them what a big fight it would be. So this work that we do is so incredibly important. And I'm gonna mute. Thank you. I was gonna say I'm gonna mute
Sorry,
everybody.
I didn't realize I was off.
That's all right. Thank you. Um, okay, so our work is important, but we have some big feels right now. So I know that it's really difficult to think about doing this work and to think about how are we going to move through this world that we live in now. And I think we all need to have the big feels, the jubilation, if that's what you feel, the despair, if that's what you feel. Take a week, take a couple of weeks, really sink in, do some constructive wallowing and grieve or celebrate or whatever you need to do. Have your big feels. But then I want to talk about something just a little bit personal. I have a member of my family who has fallen prey to undue influence. And that member of my family, the person who has undue influence over her, he recognized her vulnerability. He saw that in her. And the first thing he did was to amplify her fears with lies. And then he used that to isolate her. So we've done a deep dive in our family on how to deal with a person who's been under undue influence. And I got to tell you that the research shows that confrontation and anger are not effective, that you don't pull somebody out when they've been unduly influenced with confrontation and anger. What happens then is that they dig in more deeply. So I want to tell you that when our family member comes back, and I have all the faith that she will come back, we will embrace and we will forgive her. So does that mean that while she's under the influence right now, that she is allowed to continue to hurt us or other people in the family? No, absolutely not. We have put boundaries in place. We are doing everything we can to protect our family, to protect her future. So we will absolutely stand steady, steadfast, and not allow there to be any additional harm. But when she comes back, we will 100% embrace her and love her because all we care about is the unity of our family. And we love everyone in our family. All I care about is the unity of this country. And I love this country and all of the people who are in it. And I encourage everybody to really feel the feels. And then let's think about our goal. And our goal as an organization is absolutely to empower voters and defend democracy. And sometimes we have to swallow our feelings. When our family member comes back, sometimes that forgiveness is going to physically hurt, that I'm not going to be able to say some things that I'm feeling, and it's going to physically hurt my stomach. But I'm going to do it anyway because the only thing that matters is that we're together. So I hope that we can all come to a place, if we're not happy about what happened, where we figure out that the work is the most important thing, and we figure out the best way to accomplish that work. So that starts right now. Let's get to work. All right. The first person I'm going to introduce is Melanie, or first two people actually, I can count, are Melanie Bussey and Riva Capillari, and they are the chairs of the legislative committee here at LWVKC. Because you guys are going first, right? I'm reading the run of show. Okay, good, good. This is, by the way, a big shout out to Joyce Villeneuve because she has taken over our meetings as our meetings coordinator, chair of that committee, and I'm so grateful. But this is our first time, so I'll get the hang of how she works, and we'll get the hang of how to work together. So let me introduce Melanie.
No, okay.
Yeah, Melanie
Riva's going
and
first, but that's okay.
okay, let me introduce Riva, and I'm going to spotlight you, Riva,
Oh,
and mute myself and take it away. Thank you.
okay. Thank you, Anne. And again, all of you here today, and those of you who worked the election or worked behind the election, we're going to talk about the Legislative Action Committee, fondly called the LAC. And this is a young committee. When Anne talks about all of the years that the league has been, in existence, we've only been here for about 4 years. This is our fourth session. And this came about, well, several years ago, there was an idea of kind of figuring out how we can do a better advocacy for our issues, the league's core positions. And I got a call from Mary Lindsay and said, "Hey, someone asked me to chair this committee. I have no idea what to do. Do you want to help?" And I said, "Sure." So we started with me and Mary, and then Anne and Greg. Those were the first four people that got together. I believe that's correct, to put together some kind of committee to advocate for these issues. And then luckily, Melanie joined quickly after that. So we had five people who were really this committee for at least a while. We did a lot of the work, which was pretty intense, but as you can see, since we're so young, we really are always evolving. So we are trying to do things bigger and better and more efficient. And we've done that, I believe. We also have now a much bigger committee. We have some wonderful people who've joined us since that beginning. I'm going to talk about our purpose and our goal, and then Melanie's going to talk about our structure and how we actually work, so people know what we actually do. Obviously, our busiest time is between January and May, when the session is in session, when the legislature is in session. And we do have a page on the website, the league website, the Kansas City Week League website. If you are interested in more information, you can contact me or Melanie if you have questions. But today I'd like to talk about this idea of advancing or extending our advocacy by, first of all, letting you know what's going on in our legislature. I mean, there are over 2,000 bills that get filed every year. We know that very few of them ever get attention, and even fewer of them pass. However, that's a lot of bills. So if you're interested in following bills as a single person, as an individual, it's impossible. So that's what we do. We do your work for you. We tell you what's happening, and especially concerning the issues that we really care about in the league. So Melanie is going to tell you a little bit about how we do that, but that's our purpose, is that we do that work for you. We become aware of what bills are moving, and what bills are probably going to be, die in the water. The process to become a law is very complicated. We're still learning, to be honest with you, after all these years. It goes back and forth and back and forth. Lots of stuff goes on. So we have come up with a way to tell our members and anybody else, please share this e-letter you get on Sunday nights. Please share that with everybody that you know. We give you a way to, we tell you, look, these bills are serious, they're moving, oppose them, support them, whatever it is. And we give you a way to do that. That's our other goal, is to give you a way to advocate for these bills, excuse me, or against them very easily, fast, efficiently, and came up with a great little phrase, 5 for democracy. which means you can do this under 5 minutes. Really, under 5 minutes of your time, it's going to take to fill out this form. These alerts, if you're familiar with them, and I'm sure many of you are, we try to make very easy. You click this link to read the bill. You click another link to get to the address or the email of your legislator. We give you talking points. We give you as much information as possible for you to just do something in 5 minutes or less. So I think we've done a pretty good job so far. Like I said, we're new and we're still growing and we're still figuring out good ways to do this. And you'll find out from Melanie that we actually changed last year into Teams, which I think has been great. Let's see. I do believe that we are amplifying our voices. We are kind of working with other organizations. For instance, Planned Parenthood has lots of information and talking points about reproductive health. There are other organizations like the MOVPC and the Grandparents for Gun Safety. These organizations focus on a certain area and they have lots of information. We go to them. You know, we don't kind of reinvent the wheel. We try to get our information from other people who do this all the time. Our alerts are showing up in other newsletters. They show up in Planned Parenthood. They show up at MOVPC. We are getting around this state because we are doing this really hard work to get that information out so that you can advocate fast and easy. Okay, that's our goal. We have a new legislators this year. We had an election, as you know, of course, and we did not flip the supermajority. I shouldn't say that. I know that's kind of partisan. Anyway, there is still a supermajority, but we have new faces. We have new people. Who knows? You know, we don't know what's going to happen. We're going to talk to them and, continue with our work. I agree with Ann. I think we're amplifying our voices, and I think it does make a difference. You know, people are showing up to give a testimony in person, and our members can do that. We do encourage that if you have the time. Let's see, what else do I say? So we are here, of course, to recruit people. The more people we have, the less work it is. And again, Melanie will kind of talk about the teams and why this, I think, is a better structure for us, because if a team has 5 to 6, 7 people on it, you can distribute the tasks, and it really does make a difference. You know, one person following a bill besides, instead of having 10 people file. So the more people we have, the less work it is for everybody. So it is a lot. I will not be, I'm not going to lie to you. It is work. Sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes it's irritating. Sometimes it makes us, angry about what's going on, but because we have a way to work with that. And one of the ways to do that is to be organized and help people understand this is what's going on. How do you feel about this? This is what the league feels about this. And we will give you that information you need to advocate for these bills. So that's what we do. We take on that hard work from May to June. And the more people we have to do that, the easier it's going to be for all of us. So I'm going to turn it over to Melanie, who is my co-chair, and she's going to talk to you about how we actually do this stuff. Melanie?
Yeah, I'm going to be sharing my screen here, and I've got just a few slides to help guide me through. And what I'm going to be talking about is kind of a general overview of the structure. We're not going to get into the nuts and bolts today, but we'll talk about when we'll do that. But I'm going to see if I can share my screen. Can everybody see that? Okay. So let me try to get my things to move. Okay. All right. Got to get used to this. So as Reva's already said.
Sorry, Melanie, you need to reshare.
Is it doing it? Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So as Reva mentioned, there's basically 4 groups that are a part of this. And the one is the leadership team. And what this slide shows you is that Reva and I are the co-chairs. This started basically with Mary Lindsay. And then Mary, of course, got ill, and Reva and I kind of took over for her a year and a half ago, and then kind of took over last year. But the leadership team is made up of Reva and myself, and then Greg Woodhams, who is on this call, who also heads up the voter education, and Greg's involved in everything. But we meet to discuss the overall process. We discuss any changes that need to be made. We review the forms and et cetera. And we're just kind of a group that meet to make sure that what we're doing is working. So that's what the leadership team does. The heart of the group.
Melanie, it went.
We lost your slides again.
Okay, I don't know why it does that. Could be the way I'm trying to go through here. I have to do two different screens. Okay, the heart of the legislative process is our legislative trackers. And the trackers help by advocating for league priorities / positions. They claim and follow bills throughout the session, January through May. Pre-filing of bills actually starts in December. Our trackers submit call to actions when they want members to take actions, like to submit testimony, write your representatives, etc. And the time commitment estimate, we're just going to say is like 1 to 3 hours per week, because we never know what's going to happen with the bill. Some weeks you might be working hard on it. Other weeks, nothing might be going on with the bill at all. We offer training to all trackers. And during training, we go into more depth with the process, how to use the forms, how to find league positions and talking points, and how to follow the House and Senate websites. We currently have a hybrid training scheduled for December 14th at the Northeast branch of the Kansas City Public Library, and I'll post that in one of the slides. That is basically tracker training. And we are also scheduling several other Zoom training meetings at different times. We haven't got those dates figured yet. We'll let you know as soon as we get those. Once the session begins, Reva and myself are always available to answer questions, as well as your team leaders. And in addition, we check in every Monday at 11:30 by Zoom for any questions. It's not mandatory. It lasts for about 30 minutes. But once the session is started, we find that having that regular weekly check-in has been a great help for us to get questions answered. As we say, our advocacy is centered around league positions, both nationally, state, and locally. These were our league priorities last year: the initiative petition, voting rights, reproductive rights, social justice, LGBTQ, education, firearms, healthcare, climate and environment, taxes, sunshine law, and gender equality. Each priority that we see on this sheet has its own team, and trackers are able to pick the team or teams that they want to join. Team leaders are the next group. Each team is led by a team leader who volunteer their time. Teams can operate as they choose. The leader oversees the work of the team and helps distribute tasks and answer questions. Basically, divide and conquer each of these categories. Many share documents through Google Docs, including spreadsheets to chart legislation being tracked. The team leader is also the liaison with the turnaround team. How the work is distributed depends on the number of team members and number of bills that have been claimed. Examples of what team members could do are being assigned a particular bill, having some follow the House and some follow Senate bills, maintaining a list of claimed bills on Google Docs, help with talking points or research, just choosing alternating weeks, and also just making sure that there is coverage on a bill when somebody is not available. We all take vacations during this time, so you want somebody that's going to be there to watch the bill. The next group is the turnaround team. This team works in pairs, a writer and a proofreader every week. They review the forms submitted by trackers and work together to complete a call to action template that is submitted to the leadership team for review. The template must be completed by midday Saturday so that it can be incorporated in the call to action that is mailed out to league members on Sunday. Once completed and proofed by the turnaround team, The call to action is sent to the state president for final review. Once final approval is given, the alert is sent out every Sunday evening by email to the Kansas City League and anyone who has signed up for the mailing list. The alert is also incorporated into the state legislative update that goes out every Sunday or Monday during the session. The estimated time for a turnaround team member is 1 to 3 hours a week for the week they are assigned. Again, we're working in pairs and we have enough that you usually only have to participate in the turnaround team once every 3 or 4 weeks. So a typical weekly schedule for a tracker. Monday through Friday, you monitor bills. You check for hearings. You check to see if testimony needs to be given. You might check committee assignments. You check to see if the committee has voted on it. Is there a floor vote scheduled? You just monitor your bills and track what's going on. Again, we have the Monday morning Zoom meeting at 11:30 for 30 minutes if you need to check in with questions. Call to actions. Any call to actions, which is a step 2 form, must be completed by Friday evening at 10. And the reason we do that is that's when it's turned over to the turnaround team who reviews, proofreads, and puts the call to actions into a template. And that has to be done by Saturday afternoon. So we need the information as soon as we can get it on Friday. Sometimes you can do it earlier, but you will learn when you go through the training that a lot of times the calendar's not up for the next week until maybe Friday. So that's why we give you until Friday at 10 to get things delivered to us. And then again, a copy of the call to action is sent to Marilyn and Nancy Copenhaver for review. Revisions are made, and once it's done, it's ready for publication. I'm going to show you, this is the end product. This is what the actual call to action looks like after it's been put on the template and previewed by the turnaround team. You can see that we have, this one is a citizen initiative petition bill. This one was HJR 43. You can see that the league opposes it. We gave a short description. In this case, it increased the threshold for passage of constitutional amendments from a simple majority to 60%. We gave the status of the bill. We have talking points for the bill. We have a link to the summary of the bill, so you can actually go in and click on that and you can read the full summary yourself on that bill. Then you see the call to actions and the 5 for democracy that Reva talked about. In this case, we were asking people to contact the representative and tell them that you oppose this bill. And you can see that we also have a link there to legislative lookup, to where you click that link, you go in, you give your address, it tells you who your representative is, and it gives you their email, how to contact them. And so we give you the information. All you have to do is click that and then form your letter, your email, your phone call, whatever, and get in touch with them. Then you can see we also have a link to further reading. In this case, the initiative petition team had put together a running list of news on initiative petition defense in Missouri. Again, just a way for people to go in and find out more information about the bill and the process. And at the bottom, and this is very important, we do this on all of the bills that we are claiming for the most part. It's got the League of Women Voter position. This is very important to us because the league, we're going to do our priorities are based upon our league positions. If we don't have a league position on something, it's going to be hard to get it into a call to action as a league member. So we're very particular on what we're doing. And in this case, you could see that the League of Women Voters believes that a responsible government should be responsive to the will of the people. And we quote where that position comes from. So this is the final result of that whole week of what our trackers, our turnaround team, everybody's working on. This is what goes out. This is what you see on Sunday. Now, sometimes when it goes through the other process, when it goes to the state league, it might come out and look a little bit differently. We send it to them, but we don't have any control on how they publish it themselves. But they're basically providing the same information. If you want that Missouri one, you have to get on and you have to request to be on their mailing list as well. If you're not a member of our league, that's fine. You go in and you go to our website, and up at the top and just indicate that you want to receive the newsletter. And if you receive the newsletter, you're going to get the call to action delivered to your email. So kind of a flow chart for our trackers. You would be picking a team. You would coordinate with the team to pick tasks. You would start identifying bills. Pre-filing starts in December. You start to submit step 1 forms, which is basically claiming a bill that you're going to follow. Not all bills make it to committees or even pass out of a committee. Some don't even get moving until later in the legislation and through the session. Some are duplicates. You'll find that some people are filing the same ones, and some are incorporated into other bills. So it's just a matter of a process that we will teach you. You follow the bills, you watch for triggers, certain events that we want people to take call to actions on. When it's ready for a call to action, we submit a Form 2, which is a call to action. That's kind of our flow chart. That's the way our business runs. So again, we have training offered Saturday, December 14th at 10 at the Northeast branch. You can appear in person. You can appear by Zoom. We've also asked that it be taped. We are also going to be having several other Zoom meetings lined up. The leadership team is meeting next week, and we will be determining what dates those will be given. I sent out a questionnaire to people that have expressed an interest, and that kind of tells us the times that you're available. If you'd rather have a Zoom during the day, if you want some in the evening, Reva and I will make sure that we will offer as many trainings as needed. And sometimes you want to hear it more than once, or you just want more questions answered, and we're happy to do that for you. So that's basically a breakdown. I'm going to stop sharing. Does anybody have any questions before we're going to move to our next speaker? And I can't see.
I do.
Okay, Kelly.
On the end product slide where it said opposes, I noticed it said LWVMO and then it said opposes. Do these positions ultimately come from the state and then we research them, or is it sometimes, does that readout sometimes say LWV, KC, Jackson County, and all of that? I mean,
it could be a local one, it could be the state one, it could be a national. I think a lot of times when we were working with the state that they felt more comfortable, I think, or even you can correct me if it just said Missouri, because there's basically our local is going to follow the Missouri and the Missouri is going to follow the national. But we tell you all of those. If you look on the website, we give you all of those positions in our legislative area. On our legislative slide, we show you how to go in and check all of those positions.
So there's a Missouri position paper and a U.S. position paper, and we can use either of them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was looking, I don't have my copy of the US one right here. But like here's the US one, it might be hard to see here. I don't want to share my screen. It's called Impact on Issues, and it's a full book. And you can find all of the positions. And again, we'll go over this more in tracking, but we give you the link on the website, on our website, to how to get to them. And we provide all of our trackers with those links as well.
And also, if I can interject, we'll help match the position to the bill. And many of these bills are zombie bills that just come up year in and year out. And so we already know what the position is. That part's pretty easy. Janelle has her hand up, has a question.
Yeah, I was wondering, when you are aligning it to a position, if you align it to like the larger organization, like League of Women Voters Missouri or US, does that allow other leagues to potentially, like in Missouri, to share out so that they can comment on the bill too?
Right. And in fact, Janelle, you might not have been here, but we've got a bunch of new people with us today on our meeting that are from the Springfield League that have just signed up to be trackers. So yeah, our trackers come around from the state. So I'm glad you asked that. We have trackers in St. Louis. We have trackers in Jeff City. We have trackers in Springfield. We have trackers in Kansas City. So bills that are going to affect different people and maybe different leagues in different ways because of where they're centered in the state.
Yeah, I just want to interject quickly the same thing that we are looking for people all over the state because they will have a different perspective on each of these bills, how it affects their area personally. And I think as a league that's doing this advocacy work, we need to know that. So if anyone is out there or knows people from other leagues around the state, please tell them about this. We really want to get more and more people from around the state. It started here in Kansas City, but we really want to move it out.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'm going to then turn it over to Sharon Jones. And I see that Connor was here too, I believe. So, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sharon. Sharon founded the Jones Advocacy Group in 2019. And her team, which includes Connor, and I can't remember the other gal's name because anyway. They combine nonprofit legal support, lobbying, communications, and membership management skills to provide a robust and customizable suite of services to their clients. Sharon is an advocate and licensed attorney in Missouri, using her 2 decades of nonprofit experience to advocate for individual rights, government transparency, and corporate accountability. Her experience in policy, politics, and relationship building allow her to connect advocates and organization leaders to key legislative decision makers. She also has extensive experience managing grassroots and professional organizations. Sharon has written multiple articles for professional publications and is a frequent speaker on advocacy and legal strategy issues, including her work with the Missouri Voter Protection Coalition, which, for those of you that don't know about that, meets every Monday morning at 10 o'clock. And if you want to get on that list to watch in and listen to that Zoom, go in and sign in someplace. I don't have the information to get a part of that. It's a wonderful group around the state, and it's really good to have and to have networking. Sharon currently resides in Columbia, Missouri. I got that. Sharon has been a supporter of the League of Women Voters, and last year she shared her tips to the Kansas City League on taking advocacy to the next level, a wonderful presentation that we actually still have on our website if anybody's interested in reviewing that. We have also been able to turn to her for questions on bill progression and what is happening in Jeff City. We appreciate her being here today to give us a preview of what maybe we can expect to see when the session starts again in January. So Sharon, thanks for being here today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. And I drug Connor out of bed on a Saturday morning because he is the lead in our group for Missouri Voter Protection Coalition. So he's really the one that's been working on these issues and following them and that sort of thing. But let me just see if I can make this work. It helps if I click it on the screen. There we go. So Connor joined me in 2021, I believe, or 2022. Connor, do you remember which year?
It was 20. It was 21.
This one, yeah. And has real deep roots in mid-Missouri, knows the Capitol inside and out. I am constantly amazed at how many times we'll go into an office and he's like, oh yeah, that's my cousin, or that is, they know my cousin, or they know my dad, or whatever, as just a little bit of a fun tidbit. Denny Hoskins' father was his coach or kindergarten teacher or something.
He was my kindergarten teacher.
Kindergarten teacher, that's what.
And with small town, I mean, that means him and I knew each other just for decades afterwards. So.
All right. So we work really well together, and we are able to make sure that we are advocating for voters' rights on behalf of MOVPC in a way that really creates a broad coalition of people that want to see good elections done. The Voter Protection Coalition, for those of you who don't know and aren't on the Monday morning meetings, is really a roundtable around the state that is led by Denise Lieberman, who is also an attorney and has been doing voter protection work nationally for 3 decades. She is amazing and keeps everybody informed, and we are really glad to be partnering with her. And I really do encourage, and Connor, we can probably send to Melanie to get out to folks the way to register for those Monday morning meetings if you want to be on them. But yeah, we need to be supporting those groups. I will tell you that for the last few years, she has been funded primarily through a massive grant. That grant is not going to be renewed because we've got bigger problems nationally, and I think the funders are wanting to focus there. So we're going to be reaching out to folks and trying to find ways to make sure that we're able to continue that voter protection work with Denise in the future. But it's a very valuable organization, and it is who also runs the 866-hour vote hotline here in Missouri. So that's an incredibly valuable resource that I want to make sure everyone's aware of. But just quickly, and then I'll let Connor go through what we're expecting. 2024, the legislative session was basically chaos. There was a massive civil war between the moderates and the Freedom Caucus within the Republican caucus. That has had some outcomes both electorally and in the leadership races, which we'll talk about at the end. Democrats remained relatively cohesive throughout the year, which was good and led to some really good victories, including stopping the initiative petition reform bill, which was the #1 target of all of the chaos. However, all of these bills will be back again in the coming year. So Connor, you want to start with what we think IP will look like next year?
Absolutely. One of the things that, the main point of the IP restrictions they were trying to pass last year was an attempt to stop the Amendment 3 that we had just passed. The now governor-elect, Mike Kehoe, has actually specified that one of his priorities is going to be trying to make it harder to change the Constitution via IP. So they had a massive amount of resistance from the Democrats on this, because since the makeup is about the same, I would expect it to. I'm going to expect it to go about the same route, where they're going to try to make it so it has to reach a higher threshold, and it'll be for constitutional amendments, and then the Democrats will probably filibuster, and it'll most likely result in it'll be the same result at the end, where it's most likely going to die. However, with the new party makeup or with the new leadership makeup, we can't guarantee that. So one of the things that we're also looking into is a push for protection of statutory initiatives, because that's why all of these have become constitutional amendments, is because then the legislature can't just go back and change it. When it's the statutory level, the legislature could just overturn it or change it however they want. And so there has been a big push to start making it so that no, the legislature can't mess with the statutory limit or statutory initiatives. That way it would be less constitutional amendments.
And we're also We're also expecting a lot of the attacks, instead of trying to amend the Constitution on the percentage of votes and that sort of thing, to make it just way more expensive and make it so that petition circulators have all these extra requirements and that sort of stuff. And those would not have to go to a vote of the people. Those they could just do, and Governor Kehoe could sign. So next, poll worker protections, Connor.
Yes. So this is one that has been kind of being passed around a couple of years. Representative Peggy McGaw from the Chillicothe, Carrollton area, she's was the elections chair, but I do not believe she will be this year. Has been wanting to get this through. The idea is that it's just increased protections for those who are working the polls, and it has always kind of gotten pretty decently far, but then every time it would stall out in the Senate due to personality conflicts. And I do believe that the city of Kansas City has recently enacted an ordinance that essentially mirrors exactly what Peggy McGaw or Representative McGaw wants to do for the statewide. We have spoken with some of the members of the House leadership to the point where the Speaker-elect John Patterson was very shocked that this hasn't passed yet. He is very supportive of this. It seems to me that this is something that everyone is in large support of. It's just if it waits too long and then the Senate starts to devolve into like the Freedom Caucus versus the moderates and all that stuff, then it just dies in the Senate. We actually do believe that given everything that has happened in this last election, as we're still hearing about threats, we're still hearing about on the national level death threats and things like that, we think that this is a good opportunity to pass. It again, with the large amount of support, and with because we had a very high turnover rate with the poll workers for this last election, we do believe that this is probably, I'd say this year or next year, we will see this become law. But the key is we need to make sure that that they don't try to mess with it or try to add certain things that would make us want to kill it. So, Sharon, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Nope, perfect. Voting rights restoration.
Okay, so this is another one that for Missouri is relatively new, but the idea is that there's a lot of people who are on felony, probation, or parole who are out. They are out working. They are paying taxes. However, they're not able to vote. So Representative Melanie Stinnett from Springfield and Senator Curtis Trent, who is the parts of Greene County that aren't Springfield, have both filed similar bills. Just the idea that this wouldn't give anybody who is in prison or incarcerated with a felony or a misdemeanor related to elections will not be able to vote. This pretty much only applies to everybody who's out on probation or parole. This was another one that was held up by personality conflicts. Missouri being the red state that we are, they want to be like, oh, we're tough on crime. We want to go, we can't give them anything. It's like, well, this is different. In fact, I believe that it was Florida that recently passed a law that would allow for those who are out on probation or parole to be able to vote. And so what we've really been doing is stressing that it's like, this is not a left or right issue. Like, we're seeing red states pass this all the time. The idea, and honestly, I've even used the phrase, I mean, if you're out on probation or parole and you're out working and you're paying taxes, but you cannot vote, that is literal taxation without representation. And that works really well with the Republicans, I'll tell you that. But again, they usually make it to a hearing and then they kind of stall out on the floor. I believe that this is another one that we've talked to leadership and they're just like, yeah, I think this could be, if we could at least get it out on the floor for debate and figure out where people's issues are with it, I could see this being, this could be something very positive that we could get going this year. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. The most common objection that we hear is, oh, well, violent felons shouldn't be out voting. And it's like, well, if you actually did a violent crime, the chances of you being out of prison on probation or parole are slim to none. Generally in Missouri, in order to be released from incarceration before the full completion of your sentence, you aren't someone who created or who did a bodily harm crime. it's generally property crimes and that sort of thing. Drug possession is who we're talking about. We're not talking about, rapists and murderers by any means. So as Connor said, getting it out on the floor is key to getting this thing passed so that people can have those conversations and understand what we're actually trying to do. Our favorite topic, the PPP.
The presidential preference primary. So last year we had 4 bills filed. We had it was almost entirely Republicans, because I'm sure there are people on this call that are aware of how disastrous that presidential caucus went for this last election. I mean, we're getting reports, and these are by Republicans at their own Republican caucus, saying that they're being locked out of it. They're being moved at the last second, and people really disliked that. And I think that given everything that has happened, this is another one that I do believe is going to, while it has a good path for passage, although I will say that I doubt that there's a huge desire to do so now that Donald Trump is the president-elect. A lot of Republicans are like, that's something we can deal with in a couple of years. But it wouldn't be bad to come. Some of the biggest issues with this, particularly from the elections, like the election-related representatives and senators, is when we would have it. Because if we had it in March, it would be its own standalone, but that would increase the cost. So then there's people who want to move it to April, but then that would put a partisan election at the same time as nonpartisan elections, such as municipal and school boards. We also had some issues with workloads for the clerks, which we just want to make sure that everyone is aware that we want to give as much help to the clerks as we can. So I always want to make sure that their concerns are heard and that we address those. The last thing is, I know Senator Sandy Crawford has a big issue with whether or not these are actually binding, because with the presidential preference primary, there isn't actually, they could all vote for a certain candidate, but then the party could just select the other candidate. Or at least that's what her concern was. So we would just need to make sure that they are legally binding, or at least are just, politically binding. Almost everybody who has filed this bill will be returning, with the exception of Representative Cindy Buckeye-Courtway. Curtis Gregory is now a senator. Ben Baker still remains in his seat, and Senator Jill Carter does as well. And I'd expect Senator Carter to be heavily involved in the Senate elections this year, so she would be a very good person to have this bill go through. So, Sharon.
Your favorite topic, AI.
So this is something that is definitely newer and came to us with our from our friends at Trusted Elections. The idea is that we want to make sure that, because there were a lot of AI related deep fakes, and there was that thing going on in New Hampshire where somebody had a deep fake of Joe Biden telling people not to vote or something like that. So what we really wanted to do is just make sure that hey, if you're going to release anything that is AI generated, you need to specify that it is AI generated. This bill got shockingly far on its own legs. I was very impressed at how well it did. It was another one that stalled out due to the time constraints in the Senate and the overall chaos of the Senate this last year. The current language is acceptable. Basically, it's just, if you're going to produce anything that is politically motivated and it's AI generated, you must specify that it is AI generated. And honestly, it's something that while we were supportive, we don't necessarily need to do too much to it. It like I said, it moves pretty well on its own. There are some concerns from some of our more, we'll say, kind of more libertarian-minded Republicans, where they're just saying that, oh, well, this would be a First Amendment issue. It's well, we're not going to ban it. It's just specific. If it's a political, just like how we have all of our political ads saying who's paying for this, or that an elected official has to endorse it, It's very similar to that, in which if it's an AI generated piece of political media, you have to specify that it was generated by AI. Yeah, and so this is something I think we're gonna really want to get this done probably sooner rather than later, because as AI technology develops and gets better and better and harder to distinguish from from actual life, there are some protections in here. So
yeah, the only thing I would add is that, given this is a lower priority, so given the fact that we may be fighting for our initiative petition process pretty heavily, we'll be relying on trusted elections to come in and help us with that workload quite a bit, or just let it run on its own and see how far it goes. I wanted to talk a little bit about where we go now, because SJR 78, also known as Amendment 7, right, passed. And that had some language in it, not just the citizen only, but the ranked choice ban, and paper ballots requirements. In my opinion, I think that we're going to see a couple of bills come out of that, hand counting, and also some bills that we saw last year about requiring a citizenship marker on driver's licenses and other state issued IDs. So while the citizen only language in and of itself isn't a direct threat, as that is already the law, it has some downstream negative effects. MOVPC, and I think this is also true for League of Women Voters, doesn't really take a position on ranked choice and approval voting. And if that ever did become something that we wanted to do as a state, we'd have to amend the Constitution anyway. But that only citizen language and the paper ballots requirements could be a huge problem. Connor, do you want to talk about your Osage County clerk and the letter and everything?
Yes. One of the interesting things that I was able to find when the hand counting issues were coming up is that back in the municipal elections in April of 2023, the Osage County clerk was informed by, or was told to try hand count voting. Mind you, the person who told her to do this has ties to Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, who is trying to do hand counting, big election denier, all stuff. So our clerk, just to kind of be like, okay, fine, I'm going to give it a try. So we tried hand counting in April of 2023. We were told it would be faster, it would be cheaper, and it would be more accurate. And the Osage County clerk wrote a letter after the election explaining that all three of those were false. It took significantly longer. Like it was a municipal election, so there were maybe just a couple thousand votes for the whole county. And it still went into the next day of them counting. And they had to hire people from out of the county to come and help because of how many there were. And I'll even tell you, and our clerk explained this in the letter, that Jay Ashcroft, our current Secretary of State, called her and said, hey, go ahead and audit your vote through a machine as well, just to test how reliable it is. And it turns out that there was a 30% difference between the two. The hand counting was 30% more inaccurate. So she had lined this all out. This was a letter to the editor, to a lot of our local newspapers. And she explained that afterwards, she would no longer be going through with hand counting. They will be going back to the machines as for every other election following. This is something I have on my person at all times, because if anybody wants to say, oh, well, hand counting is a good idea, I'm like, I have a literal evidence saying that no, it is not. Unfortunately, she actually resigned due to threats of harassment in Osage County just prior to this last primary election. So again, this letter explaining what happened and all of this information. And yes, to Greg, yes, I can do that. I'll make the letter available to everybody, and you can freely have it out. it just kind of shows what's happening and how, and this is now the story around the state. The clerks do not like hand counting. They have made it very clear, they've gone publicly that they are against it. So we just need to make sure that when we're going to do this, if we're, or like when hand counting comes up, I'd say we need to let the clerks kind of maybe take the lead on this. But all of us need to be ready to talk about this, because this hand counting could cause a lot of problems. But so I'll turn back to Sharon. Let me see that.
Great. The last topic on voting rights is open primaries. This has been blocked in the past by Representative McGaugh, and now that she is not likely to be the elections chair, it may become more of a threat, but there's very little support for it. So I don't think we need to talk a whole bunch about it. I mean, Connor, is there anything else of note? Yeah, Dan Stacy's not there, so.
Not really. Yeah.
So other things that could cause issues in the legislature, these are not related to voting rights. I just wanted to run through quickly what we think could become big topics over the year. This is important for the work that we do, because when there are large fights on issues, that means that stuff is less likely to pass. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, but it means there will be likely gridlock. Low revenue predictions means we're going to have a huge budget fight. We're likely to see, and this goes to what Connor was saying about protecting statutory initiatives. The Working Families Proposition A, we're likely to see people overturning that pretty quickly in the legislature. We're hearing that there's going to be a huge fight between the Republicans about how to react to the passage of Amendment 3. That will lead to gridlock both between pro-choice and pro-life folks, as well as within the Republican Party, about whether to do another constitutional amendment or just pass statutory measures. Vouchers and school choice are going to be a huge issue this year, and we're seeing continued efforts to remove anti-discrimination protections for employment in the employment area, and as well as education on cultural competency and DEI stuff. And then we've also heard that soon-to-be Governor Kehoe is working on a comprehensive crime bill, which is likely to be something that is very controversial as well. So all of those things could mean that we are in for a session that looks a lot like last session, where we start in the Senate with a filibuster on day one and very little gets done. Last year, I think there were 2,600 bills introduced and 27 passed that were not budget bills. So we're looking at a low productivity year, which is not always bad for us. Final thoughts. A lot of these predictions are very speculative at this time. Connor has been in touch with John Patterson's office, and we don't think there will be committee assignments made until January, but we have been told that they will be shuffled around quite a bit. The Senate leadership, the way that those votes came in and the way that the elections turned out, those committees are also going to be completely shuffled around. So we won't even know who our chairs are until January, possibly. We're trying to use our contacts to get previews of that, but that can sometimes be difficult. Just so you have an idea of when I say everything's up in the air, what I mean, there are 60 new representatives, 60. People are in our legislature that have never been in the legislature before. And, I can't remember how many senators are new. Connor, do you know? All of them have served before except for one. They've all been in the House, but I can't remember how many are new. I think it's 10 or 12.
Yeah, that's about right.
A third of each chamber are new this year.
Yeah.
The Senate leadership is divided between conservatives and the traditional Republicans. that could lead to either cooperation or gridlock. We will see. The House leadership is incredibly moderate. That means that the House and Senate are both going to be fighting over what a priority looks like. And there has been no change in the division between the parties in either the House or the Senate. All of this to me, and Connor, I'll let you weigh in and see if you agree, but all of this to me means that we're looking at a recipe for gridlock and chaos and a lot of angry rhetoric with very little actually ending up on the governor's desk or the ballot.
I think that's pretty accurate. Given that I will say some of the largest disruptors of last year are gone, with Bill Eigel and Denny Hoskins taking his role as the Secretary of State. Those two were without a doubt the biggest disruptors. However, still a lot of the Freedom Caucus remain, including Senator Bratton, who will most likely be their new leader. With Amendment 3 passing, everyone's going to be grandstanding, and there's going to be a lot of look to 2026 now. And they're going to want to start making sure that they're going to line up what they want in that role. So ultimately, I think Sharon is correct. We're looking at another recipe of just gridlock, fighting, and let's not forget, there's going to be challenges because Cindy O'Loughlin is going to be the president pro tem. There's going to be a lot of people trying to challenge her role, challenge her authority. So, and we've seen that the last 2 years, and we're going to keep seeing it more. Interestingly enough, I think the House is going to be much more cooperative this year, which will be it's going to be a weird. it's going to be weird. We're going to have one chamber that might actually be productive. So, but yeah, that's kind of that's where I see it.
So I know that's a lot. We just threw a bunch of information at you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you've got.
Okay, and I do want to say, just for some people that have not been following the legislature in the past couple of years with trackers, a lot of what they are talking about, you will find out if you start tracking bills. You will learn more about what the chaos and the gridlocks are that take place in the legislature, and it couldn't be mind-boggling. And the only other thing I wanted to say is that they brought up the protection for the poll workers, and I just want to remind everybody that Greg Woodhams, through an election administration study, the league now has positions on protections for poll workers. So that is one of the main things that we took a position on. I think it was just adopted earlier this year, Greg, or earlier this year. I can't remember, or last year. Anyway, but questions? And I can't see everybody, so I'll have to let Ann or somebody
I'll let you know. I don't see any hands yet. I see some applause and some
Okay.
thank yous in the comments. Diane has a question.
Hi, have you all, my hand out. Has the league ever tracked the bill that's trying to require the accessible voting machine be used for all elections, not just federal? I know it's been introduced for at least 5-6 years running. It's National Federation of the Blind that usually finds a sponsor, and I think they tried everything from I think Lauren Arthur had it in a part of a election protection bill that had guardianship issues in it too. Anyway, it seems like everybody has those machines. It's not like it's a cost. It's not like it's an anything, but it just never makes it over the finish line.
So your question is, has the Legislative Action Committee tracked that?
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's been I think we've had some bills that we've looked at that, yes, did include that.
okay. And I assume it'll be reintroduced this year. I can reach out to somebody at NFB. I think so.
Yep.
Probably they'll keep trying.
Yeah.
And the second question is, does this group have some help by somebody on the ground, like the folks at Jones or something? When the session gets toward the end, it's been close to 10 years now, but I used to spend a lot of time in the Capitol and did a lot of legislative work on the ground. And toward the end, things are getting rolled into everything else, and you cannot remotely track that, no matter how much you try or how good you are, unless you have somebody feeding you information about it. Just got rolled into something else
Right.
unless, and again, I haven't been doing this for a while, unless they're doing a whole lot better about subs and rolling things, and the fifth sub of the amendment for the whatever, and you're trying to track all. If you're not there, you just don't know what happened until
So
much later.
So I think I can answer that question, which is that we do not have a lobbyist on the ground, but we work very closely with MOVPC and with the Sharon Jones and the Jones Advocacy Group. And so we do have connections with people who are on the ground, but we do not specifically have anyone in Jeff City, for us. At the local level, but Marilyn McLeod and
Nancy.
Thank you. Nancy
Nancy.
Copenhaver are often there. So we do have some connections. Yeah. Thank you. And
I was
go
just
ahead.
going to add, and the Missouri Voter Protection Coalition, and there's other coalitions out there, especially like on the initiative petitions, that were very helpful with that.
Okay.
So,
Any other questions?
Yeah, it just seems like big issues stay cleaner than it's the smaller issues that get rolled into stuff, and you're like,
it's also
holy moly, how did that happen? There
Okay.
were sessions where honestly something ended up passing, and I've been tracking it forever, and it's like, how did it get in there and pass? Anyway.
Okay,
And
I'm
we'll
gonna
also
thank
say
you.
the amendments are now all online. So that's one major change, is that you now can see even like the conference committee reports and every single amendment and that sort of stuff. And that was not true. Even I think they started doing that during COVID, is when they finally started putting everything online almost immediately. So even a handwritten amendment in the Senate will show up within about 5 minutes of its introduction.
Good to know.
Are they live streaming any committee meetings now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any or all?
All.
Well, see, all of that's
Great.
way ahead of where it was 10 years ago.
Okay, so we are going to move on, and I would like to introduce Dave and Carol Webster. Dave worked in restaurant management for over 45 years in several different concepts, from casual to fine dining. Carol worked in an administrative capacity, attention envelope, for over 40 years. After the tragedy in Sandy Hook and the fact that no real gun reform happened, they decided that once they retire and have some time on their hands, they wanted to do something. When they both retired in 2021, Carol did a quick Google search and the group Grandparents for Gun Safety popped up. After joining the group, they started volunteering on the advocacy committee, realizing that real positive changes were only going to happen through legislation. Grandparents for Gun Safety is based in Kansas, but has members in Missouri, and they were looking for someone to expand the presence in Jefferson City. Judy Sherry, the founder and president of GGS, suggested teaming up with the League of Women Voters and put them in contact with Reba Capillari. They took what they learned and expanded it to a higher level for advocacy to our legislators, communicating their vision to them and the community. I got cut off with I don't know what the rest of the I apparently did not copy the entire bio. I'm gonna say it takes all of us. So I would like to introduce Carol and Dave Webster. Thank you for being here.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, we were asked to talk about our trips to Jefferson City and what we've done lately. And hopefully you got something done. But we went to visit our senators and representatives under the flag of Grandparents for Gun Safety. We are both members of League of Women Voters. Although we're not experts, we'll share some of the stories and offer some of the things we learned from our visits. Many thanks to Sharon Jones for her work taking advocacy to the next level. Her insights provided many tactics not easily found in some how to advocate sources. To start with, you have to get the laws passed. It's important to know that there are many steps getting a bill passed. A bill goes through about 30 stages before becoming a law. Each stage represents a point of failure or success. It starts with the introduction, getting the bill in and out of committee, put on the floor for debate, passed, and then repeat the whole process over in the other chamber, all before the governor even sees it. The reality is that there are usually around 2,000 bills introduced each year, and only 1 out of 50 make it through. The average time for a bill to become a law is 7 years. Don't let that discourage you. Significant change takes time. To be an effective advocate, you have to identify all the steps and the legislators that make the decisions about your bill. Then advocate to them at the right time. Start with your own representative and the bill's sponsor. They'll give you the insights and direction. After that, the decision makers are in control. Contact them quickly and then on to the next one.
Due to the logistics of the trip to the Capitol, we did some advanced, actually a lot of advanced planning, so we could speak to as many as possible with the limited time that we had available. First, we identified the people that would be in decision-making positions, such as committee chairs, the lieutenant governor, secretary of state, others who might need to carry the larger metropolitan areas in order to win in the upcoming election. We sent out emails and made a lot of phone calls. Some required multiple attempts, but we were persistent and we think it paid off. Because it was early in the session, we were able to at least get time scheduled with most of the people that we wanted to talk to, and if not, with their legislators themselves, with their legislative assistants.
Good advice is create a contact list that includes office numbers, download a map of the Capitol, and this becomes helpful when planning your visit. Try to schedule visits to offices close to one another. The Capitol is a big place with small offices, and you can save some time as well as a lot of steps.
A lot of that has to do as a side note to that, particularly in the House. A lot of them share offices, and there's only room for 1 or 2 people in the office at a time. So you can actually talk to several representatives at once. And we made the mistake of scheduling one appointment, and then the next appointment was clear on the other side of the Capitol. So just in walking back and forth through the offices in one day, I think we got 3 miles in. So in order to save time, it's a good idea to plan your strategy ahead of time. We started talking out with some of our local legislators. We refer to most of them as the friendlies. They're the people that support the gun reform that we're advocating for, and thank them all for the work that they're doing. We also asked their thoughts on what was the best way to communicate with those who we deem less supportive. Several of the senators we spoke to commented that in our one-on-one session, one-on-one approach is well received. They said a lot of times when loud sign-carrying groups show up, many of the legislators go to their offices, shut and lock their doors. At times when the groups are in the balcony area, one of the senators told us they intentionally introduce legislation that they know, and I quote, will piss them off, just to get a reaction. There's a time and a place for large groups to visit, and that would be when a specific piece of legislation is scheduled for a vote. I wanted to talk a little bit about what we determined during our visit. We spoke with Jonathan Patterson. He's a majority floor leader whose district includes Lee Summit. He's slated to become the next Missouri Speaker of the House. Most of the people that we talked to said they thought that he would be a more reasonable person to deal with. And since he's a surgeon, it might be best to approach him through a health issue as opposed to a firearms issue. Speaker Plocker was very interested in the statistics that we were citing regarding child fatalities and injuries by firearms. and he asked us where we got our data. And I think what his attempt was he wanted to debunk some of the information or some of the statistics that we were giving him. And as luck would have it, the statistics that we were citing were from a report that the state of Missouri actually puts out on an annual basis, and was actually surprised that a lot of our legislators didn't even know that this report existed. Senate Pro Tem Caleb Roden was having a chaotic day that day. We were fortunate or unfortunate, however you want to look at it, to be there during the chaos that they were talking about earlier. And I guess Senator Roden got tired of all the fighting in the Freedom Caucus. So he took the members off from their committee chairmanships and even went as far as to take away their parking spaces, which seemed to upset them a little bit more than being taken off their committees, because these people had, primo parking spaces, and Roden sent them out to the North 40 to park, and they had to walk in with the common people. We did, however, we did get a chance to talk to him and got our pictures taken with him, but most of the time we were talking to a couple of his legislative assistants, and they took note on specific bills that we were advocating for and the reasons that we were behind them. And they both said, I think that Caleb could support some of this legislation, although I don't think, that he ever did. He did take a few minutes to talk to us, and even though you could hear the yelling going on in the offices around us, it was kind of like being in high school again, which is kind of scary, but yeah, it was a pretty scary day. I think Reva also touched on wanting to have advocates in different parts of the state, and that how, depending on whether you're in the metropolitan areas or the rural areas, will also they look at things differently than we do. And Crystal Wade, who was a representative who ran for governor and lost, she had a very interesting view on gun reform. She shared her family history with us. She's from a small town in southern Missouri where guns are just basically a way of life. Her dad taught her how to use a gun early on because she needed to know how to protect herself from all of the critters and snakes and things that she would encounter on the farm. And they never really think of gun rights or the Second Amendment as something that anybody would ever question. She then went to college and was the first person in her family to graduate from college and became a social worker in the Springfield area. And she realized that there are things regarding gun reform that also includes mental health issues. She said that she feels that the state of Missouri is not represented well, which is one of the reasons why she ran for governor.
Yeah, when we were on, because we had our grandparents for gun safety buttons on, it sparked conversations with people at the hotel, the restaurant, and on the street. They seemed interested in our efforts, and they shared their perspective with us. The folks in rural areas don't view firearms the way we do. To them, it's a heritage. It's a way of life. They don't talk about Second Amendment rights. They are truly concerned about responsible gun ownership, and for the most part, believe they practice it. They were surprised to hear the statistics of youth suicide in the rural areas of the state, which number 2.5 to 3 times higher than in big cities. The highest suicide rate in Missouri is in Pemiscot County in southern Missouri. The lowest is St. Louis, believe it or not. Firearms laws, out of the 60 bills that we tracked, only 5 of them want to loosen restrictions that came from legislators representing the rural areas of Missouri. Not a big thing for them. One of the things that we need to let you know about is don't downplay the importance of legislative assistants. They're the gatekeepers. and they often have significant influence on their assigned legislators. We've had many constructive conversations with the legislative assistants. The LAs will share things with you that the senators and representatives won't. They also have more time to spend with visitors while the boss is out. There were some standouts from our visit. Most notably was Diana in the Speaker of the House's office. She receives all the emails sent by our members and personally supports common sense gun reform. Diana told us she makes it a point to put copies of the emails on the Speaker's desk and flags them for him to read. Whether or not the Speaker's influence is hard to say, but at least he knows our position. Penny with Senator Bernskoetter, a conservative leader, thanked us for our efforts and remarked, "We have to do something." We got lots of positive responses from our supportive legislators' assistants too. Maddie in Senator Arthur's office and Carrie in Senator Mosley's office both incorporate some of their GGS advocacy action alerts into their newsletters to their constituents. Maddie even sends copies of the alerts to her mother. We asked all the LAs, what more could we do to get firearm reform passed? All of them encouraged us to keep up the advocacy and said it's important that we don't give up. Someday it'll make a difference, even to unsupportive legislators.
All in all, it was an interesting visit. It's all about relationships. Know your subject matter, make it relevant to your audience, and don't give up. Make your stories that you share with them relevant to the areas that they represent. You can look for publications or statistics that you can share with them, because if you're talking to people from rural areas, they think that what we're advocating for doesn't influence any of their day-to-day life, when actually it does. I guess there's one thing I want to make a mention is that by no means are we claiming that we're experts in this field. We've only done this for a year. We've been tremendously appreciative of Reva's help, and having short conversations with Anne has been helpful. And we look forward to working with the group in the year coming up. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Any questions?
Thank you so much. Yeah, any questions? I think that's so useful. We've been talking about maybe expanding our efforts at the Legislative Action Committee level to start going to Jefferson City. So that's really great information. But even for people who don't go to Jefferson City, the things that you said about making it personal and appealing to, especially if you're in a rural area, talking about how it will affect them, those are all things that can go into an email or a letter, a handwritten letter to your representative. So thank you very much. And yeah, Janelle, I want to repeat what Janelle said, that the relationship building to affect change is really great. And so lots of thank yous. I want to thank, before we will take just a couple of minutes to give the committee chairs a chance to talk about volunteer opportunities. But before we do that, please a giant round of applause for all of our guests. That we got so much great information. Thank you, Connor, Sharon, Dave, Carol, thank you so much. And Melanie and Reva for putting this all together for us. Thank you so much. And Joyce for taking on this huge task of organizing our meetings. So thank you so much. Any other questions real quick before we pivot to committee chairs? Okay, so I want to say there is a state conference this weekend, next Saturday, and I'll be sending an email out to our members of the LWVKC, not our big list, but just the member list. So it's virtual only, and I hope that lots of you will attend. We have lots to talk about. We've got some planning to do, and work to get done. So look for that email if you're in our league. If not, you can go to the LWVMO website and get signed up for that conference. So I'll be there. I hope lots of you will be there as well. So now's an opportunity for other committee chairs. Are there any committee chairs who would like to let us know about volunteer opportunities? I know we're kind of on the backside of an election, so we just got done having hundreds of opportunities, and now we just have a few. But as always, on our website, lwvkc.org, you could go to the volunteer page and see what kind of volunteer opportunities are out there. I know we have a voter registration, I believe a new citizen ceremony still to come, so that's out there. All right, Karine.
Yeah, I was going to say there is something to do behind the scenes. We're still working on things that we use at voter registration and the membership committee. So we make buttons, and then we also highlight the voter registration applications and staple on a little Vote 411 card to the portion that the new citizens take away with them. This is just an ongoing thing that never, ever, ever, ever ends. And so I try to post a work party. I call it a work party. Try to post those at least every other week. Right now we're in pretty good shape with the buttons, but we'll need to start highlighting more of the voter registration applications. And it's usually at my house, and we have a good time. We get to talk and eat and drink and well, it's during, I won't say drink alcoholic beverages, but because this is in the morning-ish or early afternoon. But we do have a fun time, and you get to meet everybody else too, especially if you're a newbie. It's a good way to meet members. So keep your eyes open on the volunteer page for that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Karine. Reva?
There are two registration events that I know of for new citizens. One's in was there one already happened? There's one in November and one in December. I don't think the one in November has happened yet, but there's two more in this year. And I will say the last one I went to, which was at the Plaza Library in October, so many people were disappointed they couldn't vote in the November election. You know, they just became citizens after the deadline. So which tells me, I think there were 100 people, and I think we registered 50 of those 100, which is, a lot. That's great. That's 50% of who came there. Anyway, so we do have some eager voters for the next election.
Great, thank you. All right, last call. Any other? All right, as always, please be sure you read the e-voter. We have a public edition that comes out once a month, and then we have a members only edition that comes out once a month. So if you're a member, you get two of them each month. If you want to be on the list to get that newsletter, go to our website, lwvkc.org, and click the join mailing list up there in the right-hand corner. That's how you get the legislative action newsletter too, that will start coming out. So actually, if you're a member, you get 2 e-voters plus 4 or 5, depending on the number of weeks in the month. You'll get those newsletters as well. Janelle?
Sorry, I am going to just make a shameless plug as a committee fill-in chair for Observer Corps. I am going to be helping to organize the Observer Corps meetings now as Donna is stepping away a little bit. But if you have a desire to help me or chair Observer Corps or learn more about Observer Corps, I would encourage you just to reach out to me.
Yeah, actually, thank you for saying that. And because that reminds me that we do have some leadership positions open in the league. It is kind of a natural rhythm of things that when a big election is over, some, people will decide that they're ready to move on and do something else, but they'll follow through until the end of the election, and then they'll be finished. So we've got a few places where we need to fill in some leadership. So if you're interested in a leadership position, just drop me an email or drop one to Janelle. But be thinking about that if you would, please, because it's really rewarding, and I think we've really accomplished a lot this year. I'm really proud of the work that we've done. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for attending. I know I learned a ton, and I really appreciate everybody being here. And we will see you. We will not have a regular meeting in December because we celebrate our volunteers in the evening in December, where we do. Oh, I was about to say we don't have to restrict ourselves to coffee, but we do. I forgot that we do. So. So yeah, never mind. I almost overpromised and underdelivered, but take a look and get signed up for the volunteer appreciation dinner, and then we'll see you back at the regular meeting in January. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a great afternoon.